Okay, recording started.
Okay, so everyone, welcome to the weekly SIG Cloud Provider meeting. A reminder: this meeting is being recorded, and will be posted to YouTube. So this is all public, and we have the agenda. It's been dropped into the chat. And so I guess we'll start off with, is there anybody who is new to the meeting this week? Is there anyone who hasn't attended the SIG Cloud Provider meeting before?
Hi, I am new. I'm Helin from Baidu.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you.
Alrighty.
I think I'm new. I forget. I might have attended once before. I'm Tim Pepper. I work at VMware with Fabio and others, and then also I'm on SIG release and the 112 release lead.
Hi, Tim. Okay, well, so we have a pretty light agenda this week, but it's also a fairly important one because we have a number of new cloud providers who have sent in pull requests to have repositories created for their existing cloud providers. And so why don't we start off with that? We can begin with the Baidu cloud, and the representatives there can possibly introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their cloud. I think that would be their cloud provider. That would be a great place to start.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Helin from Baidu. I'm sorry, I'm actually not from the Baidu Cloud team because it's 4 a.m. in China. So my friends at the Baidu Cloud team asked me to come and join the meeting. So in case you guys have any question for him, I can forward the question to him. But I'm not have a deep knowledge to their product, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I actually added that agenda item. Someone on your team was kind of in contact with me for this. And so for anyone who's new, to provide some context on the process for how we're adding new cloud providers is that we have pretty loose requirements right now, which is that there needs to be a reasonable amount of user experience report for your cloud provider. And so essentially, like, the CUP proposal is just saying, like, this is the cloud provider, this is what we asked for the community, and like, here is some sort of proof that like we're a legitimate cloud provider and we really want to improve Kubernetes on our platform. And so the three CAPs there are from like Baidu Cloud, Alibaba, and DigitalOcean, where I work. And so yeah, I don't think there's anything more than that. I think really what we need from everyone here is to review it. Know that the process is still in progress. So if you find any things lacking with the process, or if you think there needs to be more things required from cloud providers to move forward, then I think this is a good time to kind of chat about it. One thing to note was that before we talked about making conformance testing and documentation a strict requirement. Right now, in my opinion at least, I think this should be a strict requirement once we have enough cloud providers actually doing this properly, and I don't think we do right now. And so in the future, that will probably be in the list of requirements. That's it from me on this one.
Okay. Were there any other comments from the new cloud providers who have sent in pull requests, like Alibaba Cloud? Did you have any comments that you wanted to make during the meeting, or did you want to introduce yourselves at all?
I don't think anyone from Alibaba Cloud is here right now.
There's here.
Yeah.
And Andrew, you're DigitalOcean, and I think we know.
Yeah, I had to go through a bit of some office politics, which is why this was a bit delayed. But yeah, finally got the PR out, and so yeah, really excited about kind of getting all our cloud controller code into a public open repository owned by the Kubernetes community. So really excited about this. The next item is also mine too.
Okay.
We talked briefly about this last week, and pretty much we said we'll talk about it offline and then revisit. So the problem around this is the load balancer names in Kubernetes is very cryptic and misleading. So right now what we do is we take the letter A and then append the service UID as the load balancer name. So I don't know what the history behind doing this is. It's probably because we wanted some generic name that works with every cloud provider. And so a colleague of mine opened a PR, it's a work in progress, but the PR essentially adds a get load balancer name into every cloud provider, and then will probably default the service UID name into every provider. And then what this lets us do is every provider then can on their own time figure out some way to migrate into a more sensible name that probably includes, like, I don't know, the actual service name or something. Anyone have questions around this or need clarification on what this? So this is going to affect every cloud provider that uses a load balancer.
Just a comment. This sounds great. I think the name is terrible, and the fact that we can't configure it is really annoying. So yeah, I'm on board.
So I guess the main question I have in the pull request is so it's going through and it's changing, like, it's changing it from generic cloud provider to GCE or to so why are we not abstracting this and just pushing down the implementation to the cloud provider implementation? It seems like the abstractions should still be the place to get that name, and then when that interface is satisfied by the individual providers, that's where that should happen there. But it looks like we're switching from the general provider to the specific provider. I could be reading the code wrong too.
Yeah. So the biggest problem around this is that you have to be really careful when you change load balancer names. Because you don't want to break anyone's load balancer, because that'd be bad. And so what we're trying to do is push the concern into, so right now the method get load balancer name is a global method in package cloud provider. And
right.
So every provider calls this global method. And so what we're doing is we're just pushing the method down to in-tree. Well, we're doing both in-tree and out-of-tree, but we have to add it in-tree because of dependency reasons.
Right.
And what we're essentially doing is the cloud provider specific method for getting the load balancer name is just a copy of what we have currently to keep backwards compatibility. And then whenever cloud providers want to change it, they can do whatever they need to do that.
Gotcha. So you're switching from the global provider to an interface.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I understand. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I know we're trying to avoid adding more methods into the cloud provider interface, but I'm not sure, I don't know what the other alternative here is. No,
I think it's a case where, yeah, we do want that in the cloud providers. And so, yeah, so as long as it's in the that we're creating a contract and we're having the provider satisfy that contract.
Okay. Walter, do you have anything to say there? Still mute. Still mute. I can't hear you.
Walter, you're still on mute.
I might give a little context.
There we go.
That's good.
I'm sorry. Or Justin, maybe you're about to say what I was going to say. No, it looks pretty good. I'm tempted to suggest having the actual implementation in one place and putting in one more level of indirection. But other than that, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll probably want like a method, like a default cloud provider or default load balancer name, and then just call that method out from each implementation.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Justin?
Yeah, I was just going to give a little history about it. It's the problems being about not losing a load balancer if a user already has a load balancer, and a secondary problem being the risk of collisions. So that's why we don't just use just the service name, for example. And then the third problem being what was the third problem? Can't remember the third problem. Anyway, those were the first two were the big problems. But certainly the implementation as it stands now or the PR as it stands now is great in that it sets up the mechanism for people to do a migration that might, allow for a sort of nicer handoff.
Yeah, I will say I think we should make sure that SIG networking is aware of this, but I don't anticipate any problems.
Yeah, When the PR is in a better shape, I'll go to one of their meetings and then bring it up.
I remember the third thing, which was just that there's a potential confidentiality issue because the name appears in at least AWS's DNS name. I don't think that's a huge deal, but anyway, just that was the third. That is a very distant third.
Well,
So
it sounds like with this. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, it sounds like with this change that AWS can, with this change, do what they feel necessary to maintain their PII restrictions.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all for this one. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the documentation cap that Nishi and I have been working on. She unfortunately wasn't able to make this meeting, but I've been chatting with her on Slack, and she's saying that she's going to push that as well as an end-to-end testing cap tonight or tomorrow at the latest. So we should be looking for those arriving soon, and once they land, I'll make sure that I drop those into the Slack channel for people to review. And and if you're interested in seeing any of those, I can make sure that you get tagged on the pull request also. So, and I think we have a Google Doc that covers some of the work on this too, that we've been getting some feedback on. Let me dig up that link, and I think this is it right here. Yeah, I'll drop this link into the into our meeting also. And okay, so that's the. It looks like a few new items have been added into the agenda. So who has the CCM build cap?
That's me just once again. Andrew's given me feedback. Thank you, Andrew. But if other folks could please take a look at this cap, I would really appreciate it. It's sort of trying to come up with a common model for how we piece together each cloud provider's repo with the main Kubernetes repo, how we do builds, how we do testing. This is pretty central to our lives going forward. So I want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and happy with what we're saying.
Walter, have you, and I should look at this too, have you tagged Chris Nova on this cap?
I haven't. If you think he should look at it, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, she should take a look, because there's work being done, kind of coincident with the I'm trying to remember which SIG we've been working with. Do you remember which SIG that is?
Is it the cluster API subproject?
Yeah, the cluster API SIG, and they've already started spinning out repositories also related to the different cloud providers for how they do cluster management, which is a little bit different from the cloud provider code. So there was talk. They had reasons as to why they wanted to structure the repositories that way, and so making everyone aware of something that has kind of the wider reach, and making sure that if there are places where they interface with that and that they need to have comment on that is probably a good thing.
If you could ping me their handle, that would be great. The other thing, I have talked a little bit with SIG Release and with SIG Storage, because they both have things going on as well. And so this is why I'm trying to I want to get everyone to sort of sign off and get all their objections heard, and so we can come up with one unified story of how to move forward.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Are there any other comments on that item? Yeah, I'll make sure that I connect you, Walter, and that I get her on that PR too, so that she can offer some feedback. On to the next item on the agenda, which is the 1.12 features.
I just wanted to give a little reminder to the SIG. Looking at the features repo, there isn't anything specifically labeled with SIG Cloud Provider, but doing a search on Cloud Provider, there are a lot of things, and I know with the cluster API and other things going on, there is a lot in this space. So if there's anything that you wanted to call out for upcoming activity related to 1.12 and have a release team have visibility onto, just make sure that y'all are aware of the feature freeze coming in a week's time, July 31st.
Yeah, were there any features on the cloud provider that we expected to be coming in? I guess load balancer naming would be a feature that we would be expecting to land in 1.12. But is there anything else that people can think of that would be going into the cloud provider or just in work we're doing in general?
So I'm trying. I wouldn't call it a feature per se, but I'm hoping to get some changes put through, which are going to be kind of broad, like moving the actual cloud provider code into staging, which is, I think, something we need to get done.
Yeah, that's definitely something I have in my mind just from a risk management perspective on the release, knowing that things are moving around and ensuring that we continue to have good test coverage and re-aggregation of test results, because we don't want to get a false signal as we're going towards release on 1.12 if something major is not right.
Yeah, so for the out of tree cloud provider stuff, that was bumped to beta in 1.11. So we don't expect any feature updates on that part, at least.
Okay. Are there any other topics that people wanted to bring up or add to the agenda as we come to the end of the planned out agenda? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming to the meeting, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. Bye.